ay nagbabalik sa inyong harapan at napapanood nyo na naman po ang aking vlog. So ngayon, ang ating pong video, ang content po natin ngayon ay hindi na puro kalokohan. Hindi na siya kung ano-ano na lang dyan ng mga kung ano-anong bagay na naiisip natin para lang may upload. So naman ay dadagdagan natin ang ating vocabularies. So ang gagawin natin ngayon ay try to avoid very challenge. Ayan, challenge siya, pero parang i-discuss lang natin siya ngayon. Parang ganun lang, something like that. Challenge accepted. And number 1. First is yung very fast. Instead of saying very fast, ay sabihin natin yung quick. For example, make it quick. Sam is waiting. Yon, ganon. Next naman is yung very dry. Very dry, or instead of saying very dry, try to say parched. Ito, parched. Yan. Example ganito. Can you give me some water? I'm parched. Ganon. Next is very cold. Instead of saying very cold, try to say freezing. For example, hello, I'm freezing here outside. Can you open the door quickly? Next is very afraid. Instead of saying very afraid, try to say terrified. For example, I'm terrified of dogs. Next is, instead of saying very angry, try to say furious. For example, I'm sorry if I scolded you earlier. I was just furious. I'm sorry. Sorry again. Sorry. Next example is this. I was furious when I caught my girlfriend cheating on me. Girlfriend or boyfriend. Furious. Next is very beautiful. Instead of saying very beautiful, try to say exquisite. For example, I heard her sing, and her voice is truly exquisite. Next is, instead of saying very clean, try to say spotless or spotless. For example, her uniform is so spotless. Na nagsasabi na sobrang linis ng uniform niya. Next is very clever, or yung sobrang talino. Instead of saying very clever, try to say brilliant. For example, a brilliant child who always tops on class. A brilliant child always tops on class. Next is very tired, or sobrang pagod. Instead of saying very tired, try to say exhausted. Exhausted. For example, I'm exhausted from work. I'm exhausted from work. Another example is, I'm exhausted from this toxic relationship. I'm exhausted from this toxic relationship. Next is valuable. Instead of saying very valuable, try to say precious. Precious. For example, I am a precious gift from God. I'm a precious gift from God. And another example is, I am a precious individual to God. I am a precious individual to God. Next is, instead of saying very happy, try to say jubilant. Jubilant. Okay? So, for example is, the man's jubilant was up to heaven when her girlfriend said yes. The man's jubilant was up to heaven when her girlfriend said yes. Next is, try to avoid saying very hot. Instead, say scalding. Scalding. Yan, dito naman po. Scalding. Yan. So, for example is, the takip of the caldero is scalding. Scalding. Sobrang mainit. As in, sobra-sobrang yung init niya. So, yun po yung term sa sobrang init, scalding. Yan. Next is very loved. Very loved. Instead of saying very loved, try to say adored. Adored. Example, I adored you so much, but you just ignored me. I adored you so much, but you just ignored me. Next is, instead of saying so wet or very wet, try to say soaked. 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 S-O-A-K-E-D. Wow, may accent. Example, she was soaked in the rain. She was soaked in the rain. Next is very wicked. Very wicked. Instead of saying that word or those words, try to say villainous. For example, Georgia, a villainous woman, tried to kidnap Emma and she succeeded. Alam niyo yon, yung ika-anim na utos. Doon po more like ika-anim na utos. Nag-aaral tayo dito eh. Next naman po, and lastly na pala, this is a simple word. Very pretty. Very pretty. Instead of saying those words, very pretty, try to say beautiful. Beautiful. For example, you are beautiful. You are beautiful. Yan. Guys, natapos na tayo sa part 1 ng try to avoid saying very. Challenged. Challenged? Challenge. Yan. So, abangan niyo po yung part 2. Meron pa tayo dito mga na-research na mga try to avoid very na mga words. So, sana po may natutunan kayo and ako rin may natutunan sa pagre-research ko. So, God bless us all and sa pagsagot ng modules and sa ating pag-aaral. Ingat po lahat!